Hello and welcome to the Devil's Luck card game tutorial. This is a card game of my own creation. I wanted to create a little YouTube video to showcase how the game is played. I felt like the rules were pretty simple, but it's easiest to explain it through seeing it being played. Every person I play tested with, once they saw how it was played once, they were able to get it straight away. So I wanted to put this tutorial up there for when the card game comes out. You guys can watch this and be like, wow, that's how I play. Great. Devil's Luck is a game that consists of up to 3 rounds, and it's a best 2 out of 3 game. A player wins the round by having the most points on the board at the end of the round, and a player wins the whole game by winning 2 rounds. You begin the game by shuffling the deck, obviously, and then dealing 7 cards to each of the 2 players. Let's start by looking at the anatomy of the cards. You can see me shuffling through the cards right now in my hand. There were 2 types of cards in this game. There were fighter cards and support cards. Fighter cards all have a power value, and that is how many points they are worth. That is the number in the bottom right hand corner. They also have either a might or a mind symbol. This is either represented with a sword or a lightning bolt. They don't actually do anything by themselves, but can be relevant to some card effects. Some fighter cards will also have abilities, but they tend to be minor or only affect themselves. On the other hand, support cards do not have a power value and therefore do not get points by themselves, but instead will have a more powerful ability that will either affect the board or give you points in some other way. Cards will also have a faction, for example Marines or Devil's Luck. This can be relevant for some abilities as well. Card abilities activate either when they're flipped, whilst they're on the board, or at the end of the round. You'll see what this means in more detail as we play the example game. So now we're going to play through a typical game. I'll talk about the relevant information as it happens to hopefully ease you into the playing experience. We've just drawn our 7 cards, so we're taking a look at our hand. We've got Pearl, who is a Devil's Luck support that can destroy a fighter on the board. We've got Durus, who is a 2-power Might Devil's Luck card. We've got Ragnar, which is a 3-power Might Devil's Luck card. We've got William, that's support that gives us bonus points for having Devil's Luck. We've got Atom, who is a fighter who gets stronger if we lost the previous round, so we won't be using that one yet. We have Jester, who becomes a copy of another card on the board. And finally, we got Eustace Valve, which is just a 2-power pirate card. We're going to want to pick 4 cards from our hand to place face down on the table. 3 of them we're going to be using, and 1 of them is kind of like a conditional card. I noticed that we do have a lot of Devil's Luck cards, as well as William that gives us bonuses for Devil's Luck. We have to be careful though, because all of the effects in this game are symmetrical, so if our opponent had any Devil's Luck cards, they would also benefit from William being out on the board. So I'm going to be placing down William, Ragnar, Durus, and Pearl. Pearl kind of works as the conditional here. If the opponent plays something that kind of counters our strategy, we can use her to destroy one of the fighters on the board, though that would mean potentially not getting the points from either Durus or Ragnar. Now, let us begin the first round. Both you and opponent will pick a card. It could be any card, it doesn't have to be in an order left or right or anything like that. And then both you and the opponent will count down 3, 2, 1, and then you'll flip and reveal your cards. In this situation, I flipped Ragnar first because he's one of the simpler cards and it doesn't give away too much of my strategy to the opponent. My opponent, on the other hand, flipped Arzen, which is a 2-power Mind Marine card that cannot be destroyed, which is smart to play first because the first card is usually also the biggest target and may cause us issues if it's the only fighter that they play. We can't really kill anything with Pearl. At the moment, my opponent has 2 points and I have 3. Because of this, I'm going to save Pearl to last just in case something that we can kill comes up, and now I'm probably going to flip William, as it seems like it's probably the safest option for me at the moment. 3, 2, 1, flip! Oh no! My opponent flipped Not Steve. Taco. Not Steve reads, when this card is flipped, if the opponent's flipped card is a support card, this card's power becomes 4. A flipped card is the card that we are flipping that moment. And for me, that is William, which is a support card. This card's ability activates when it's flipped. And when it's flipped, it notices that my card is a support, and its power becomes 4. Which is not good for me, because that's a lot of power. If, for example, I had chosen to flip Ragnar second, Not Steve would have only been 1 power, since Ragnar is a fighter and not a support. So there's a lot of risk in trying to predict when your opponent's going to flip what sort of card. In this situation, my opponent outsmarted me, and has now got 6 power on the board, whilst I only have 5. This is okay though, because we came prepared for this exact situation. We have a choice between either using Pearl or Durus as our final card. We could use Durus, and then we would have a total of 9 points on the board, because we'd have 5 points from Ragnar and Durus, and then the 4 points that William gives us from having Ragnar and Durus. But we don't know what our opponent's final card could be, and it could be something that would give them more than that amount of points. It's safer for us to get rid of the thing that gives them the most points at the moment, which is Not Steve. 3, 2, 1, flip! So we have to declare our target as we flip Pearl, and we are declaring Not Steve as the thing that gets destroyed. So get out of here, Not Steve! Our opponent flipped Lissa, which is a support card that doubles the power of all mined cards on the board. Both Arzen and Not Steve were mined cards, so our opponent would have had a total of 12 points. But luckily, we got rid of Not Steve, so now they only have 4. But wait, some of you keen-eyed viewers would have noticed that Lissa is also a Devil's Luck, and because William gives each player +2 for having a Devil's Luck card, our opponent also benefits from that +2, so their total points is actually 6. Luckily for us, Pearl is also a Devil's Luck, so our point total goes up to 7 and we win the round, but it was a close one. At the end of the round, all played cards go into the graveyard, and that remaining face-down card goes back into your hand to be played in a later round. Both players then draw a card from the deck, the loser draws first, and you begin the second round. You'll notice that your pool of cards will be smaller than in the first round and also include a lot of the cards that you didn't use in the first round. In this game, you kind of have to plan ahead a little bit and you can't just use all your best synergy, most powerful cards in the first round, because then you'll lose the second and third round and lose the whole game. If you'll notice, I drew Blue Blood, which is similar to Lissa, but instead he doubles the power of all might cards on the board. Luckily, Duros is a might card, and I still have Eustace Valve from my hand, so I think a really simple play here would be to place down both Duros and Eustace Valve. I'm also going to place down Jester as a sort of just in case I could maybe copy something the opponent has. The second round begins with me flipping Duros and my opponent flips Malaise. Now, Malaise is an interesting card. It's a support that gives players -2 points for each fighter card they control, and since Duros only gives me 2 points, I currently have 0. My opponent also has 0 as Malaise doesn't give them anything either. For my second flip, I'm deciding to flip Blue Blood, since I can double Duros' points and then at least I'd have 2 points on the board. My opponent has flipped another support card, Dane Goodman. Dane Goodman reads, at the end of the round, if there are 4 or more different factions on the board, you gain +4 points. Currently, the factions Independent, Flames, Devil's Luck and Pirates are all on the board, and so my opponent has 4 points and I only have 2. Now I could flip Jester here to copy Dane Goodman and I would have 6 points, but my opponent might play something to get them even more points than that, and Jester is too good of a card for me to not want to use in the final round. So I'm deciding here to flip Eustace Valve, take the loss in the second round to guarantee my victory in the third. 3, 2, 1, flip! And would you look at that, my opponent played another support card, Captain Viridian. Well, Captain Viridian reads, at the end of the round, if there are more support cards on the board than fighter cards, you get +4 points. And because my opponent is only playing supports and I have Blue Blood, which is a support, there were 4 support cards and only 2 fighter cards on the board, therefore my opponent has a total of 8 points, whilst I only have 4. I lose this round, but it's okay, we move. Played cards into the graveyard, unplayed card back into your hand. Because I lost that round, I will be drawing first this time, and you'll notice that now we only have 3 cards in hand, which is exactly the amount of cards that we need to play a round. This final round is sort of like a sudden death, where you have to use your remaining cards to try and pull out a victory. If you remember from the very beginning, we've always had the card Atom, which gets more powerful if we have lost a previous round. Well, now we've lost a previous round, so this is the perfect time to use it. We also have Jester, and we could use Jester to copy Atom, giving us 8 points, which would be an awesome way to finish the game. The final round begins, and 3, 2, 1, we flip our first cards. I obviously flip Atom because I'm going to get those juicy 4 points from losing that previous round, but what is this? My opponent flipped the Boar. The Boar reads, when this card is flipped, destroy the opponent's flipped card. This is an incredibly powerful ability because it will just unconditionally destroy my flipped card. It is a big risk though because that card could have been anything. In this situation, it pulled through. I'm not sure what I'm going to do now. Oh wait, yes I do. 3, 2, 1, flip Rear Admiral Jefferson. This was the card that I drew, and it reads, at the end of the round, if a card has been removed from play this round, this card's power becomes 4. And since my opponent destroyed Atom, I get that 4 power. My opponent flipped Valentine, which is a 3 power card, so I currently have 4 power, my opponent has 3, and it all comes down to this final card. 3, 2, 1, flip! And I flipped over Jester. Originally I wanted to copy Atom for that sweet 8 points, but since Jefferson's ability activated, I'm gonna copy him instead, giving me 8 points from the back of Jefferson alone! My opponent flipped V, which is gonna give him bonus points for having both the Boar and Valentine on the field, but his total points only come up to 7, and my 8 points just narrowly beat it, winning me the entire game! Anyway, that's pretty much a run-through of how to play the Devil's Luck card game. Obviously, there's a lot more cards in the pack than what I've shown here, and there's a lot more strategies. I feel like the game at its core is pretty simple, but it's a lot of mind games. There's a lot of trying to predict what your opponent's going to do, what they're going to flip at what time, also being able to construct the best synergies with what you get. There's a good mixture of luck and skill, and it's been playtested a whole bunch, and everyone I've played it with has enjoyed it, so I know it's not going to be the best game in the world because I'm just Daniel Rustage, and I'm just a guy. I've never designed a game before. This is literally my first time doing anything like this, and I just kind of happened to make something that was fun. So thank you so much for playing and ordering it if you do order it. And thank you for watching this video as well. I hope it was informative. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments of this video and I'll try and respond to any specific questions. There's certain interactions that might be a little bit confusing, and there's a couple of extra things like destruction effects will always go first before non-destruction effects, and cards that affect flip cards will always go before cards that affect the board. So for example, if I flip the boar and my opponent flipped Pearl, the boar would kill Pearl first before Pearl would have the opportunity to destroy anything on the board. The order of operations is written on the rule card that comes included, as well as all the rules and everything, so you can always refer back to that. I don't think there's going to be anything that isn't on that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the game. I want to give a huge thank you to Keiru, who kind of was like the backbone of the artistic side of this project. He designed all the cards, the layouts and such. He did about half of the artwork. And then I also want to say thank you to every single artist. They are all credited at the bottom of their cards, so make sure you go check them out. Thank you.